The ship came down through the clouds like a falling star. It was small and gray and made no sound as it landed on the wide stone platform at the edge of the great forest. They watched it with narrow eyes and flat ears. They did not like visitors. Commander stepped out into the cold morning air. She was tall for a human, with dark hair pulled back tight and eyes that missed nothing. She wore the simple uniform of the Galactic Union, and she carried no weapons, though would have smelled them anyway. A group of elders waited for her. They stood on 4 legs, their fur ranging from deep gold to spotted gray. They were beautiful in the way that dangerous things are beautiful. Their teeth were long and sharp, their claws never fully retracted, and their eyes held the cold pride of a species that had never known defeat. The High Matriarch stepped forward. She was old, her muzzle gray with age, but her body was still strong and her voice carried like thunder. "Human," she said, "you come to watch our sacred trial. You are the first outsider we have ever allowed. Do not make us regret this choice." Bowed her head in respect. "I am honored, High Matriarch. I come only to learn and to strengthen the friendship between our peoples." The High Matriarch made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Friendship, yes. The Galactic Union wishes to be friends with everyone, even those who do not want friends." She turned and began walking toward the great gathering of tents and fires that spread across the valley below. "Come, you will see how we make our children strong. Perhaps you will understand why they have never bent to any enemy." Followed, she had read everything about them before coming here. She knew their history, their customs, their beliefs. She knew they valued strength above all things. She knew they thought humans were weak, soft, too dependent on their tools and their ships and their numbers. She also knew that they had been fighting a losing war against the hegemony for 30 years. They were too proud to ask for help, but they were running out of time. The valley was full of. Thousands of them had come from every clan on the planet to witness the trial of First Fangs. It happened once every 3 years, when the cubs born in the same season had grown old enough to prove themselves. Those who passed would become full members of their clans. Those who failed would carry shame forever. Walked through the crowds, feeling the weight of their stares. She kept her face calm and her hands visible. She was not afraid, but she was careful. One wrong move could ruin everything. Near the edge of the camp, she noticed a small group of cubs sitting apart from the others. There were 4 of them, huddled together beside a cold fire pit. No adults sat with them. No clan banners hung above their tent. She stopped and watched them for a moment. The largest was a female with dark red fur. She sat very still, her eyes moving constantly, watching everything. A protector, thought. The second was a male with stripes like a tiger, packing back and forth with barely contained energy, a fighter who wanted to prove himself. The third was another female, smaller, with soft gray fur and careful movements. She was cleaning the others' fur, checking their ears for parasites, doing the small caring tasks that kept a family together. And the fourth was the smallest of all, a male cub with fur so pale it was almost white. He sat in the middle of the group and even from a distance could see that he was afraid. His ears were flat against his head. His tail was wrapped tight around his body. He looked like he wanted to disappear. An elder passed by and spoke without thinking. "Those 4 cubs, who are they?" The elder looked at her with surprise, then followed her gaze. His expression changed to something like pity mixed with contempt. "They are no one," he said. "Orphans from a dead clan. Their mother died in the winter sickness. Their father went hunting and never returned. No clan has claimed them. They have no sponsor for the trial. But they are still taking part. They have that right. Any cub of age can enter the trial, but without a clan to teach them, without elders to prepare them." He shook his head. "They will not return from the. It is sad, but it is the way of things. The weak do not survive. This is how the stay strong." He walked away and stood alone, watching the 4 orphaned cubs. The red female had noticed her starring. She stood up, placing herself between and her siblings, and bared her teeth in a silent warning. Even now, even facing a trial that would probably kill her, she was still protecting them. Felt something stir in her chest. She had seen that look before. She had worn it herself long ago in a childhood that had not been easy. She nodded once to the young female, a gesture of respect, and walked away. That night she lay in her small tent and listened to the sounds of the camp. Laughter and songs and the crackling of fires. The sounds of a people preparing to watch their children face death. She thought about the 4 cubs. She thought about the way the smallest one had looked so afraid, and the way his siblings had gathered around him anyway. She thought about what the elder had said. The weak do not survive. This is how they stay strong. But was that true? Was that really what made a species strong? Humans had faced extinction many times, ice ages and plagues and wars that had nearly destroyed them. They had not survived because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most dangerous. They had survived because they had learned to stand together, because they had discovered that many weak creatures working as one could become something far greater than any single strong creature alone. They did not understand this. They valued the lone hunter, the individual warrior, the single champion who could defeat all enemies. And that pride was killing them slowly in a war they could not win alone. Maybe she could not change anything. Maybe she was just one human on a world full of people who thought she was weak. Maybe the 4 orphaned cubs would die in the forest and no one would remember them. But she would watch, she would wait, and if the chance came to teach the something they desperately needed to learn, she would take it. Outside her tent, the great forest called the stood dark and silent against the stars. Tomorrow the children would enter, and only some of them would come out. Closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but the image of the smallest cub, so afraid and so alone, stayed with her through the night. The morning came cold and gray. Mist rose from the valley floor and wrapped around the trees like ghostly fingers. The cubs gathered at the edge of their small bodies tense with fear and excitement. Their parents stood behind them, offering last words of advice, touching foreheads in the ancient gesture of blessing. All except 4 stood at the front of her small group, her dark red fur standing up along her spine. Behind her paced back and forth, his striped tail lashing. Sat very still, her gray eyes fixed on the dark forest ahead. And Kex, the smallest, pressed himself against side and tried not to shake. No one came to bless them. No elder offered advice. The other cubs looked at them and whispered among themselves. Some laughed. Others looked away, embarrassed by the presence of the ones. Ignored them all. She had learned long ago that expecting kindness from strangers was foolish. The only ones she could count on were right here, her littermates, her pack. They had survived the winter together. They had hunted small prey and stolen scraps and slept in a pile for warmth when the nights grew bitter. They were all each other had. The high matriarch walked to the front of the gathering. Her voice rang out across the valley. Today begins the trial of First Fangs. You will enter thee as cubs. Those who reach the summit stone will emerge as true. You will have 3 days. You will carry no weapons, no food, no tools. The forest will test you. The predators will hunt you. Your strength and your will are all that can save you. She paused, her golden eyes sweeping across the young faces before her. Some of you will not return. This is the way of our people, that does not accept the weak. It does not forgive mistakes. But those who survive will know that they have earned their place among us. They will fear nothing for the rest of their lives. She raised one massive paw. Go now, prove yourselves. The group split apart and entered the forest at different points. Led her siblings into the trees, moving quickly, putting distance between themselves and the other cubs. She had noticed how they looked at her group. Some of those looks had been hungry. The trial had rules, but the forest did not. If another group caught them alone and outnumbered, there was nothing stopping them from attacking. It was dark and thick and full of sounds. The trees grew so close together that their branches blocked out the sun. Strange birds called from somewhere high above. Things moved in the shadows just out of sight. Growled low in his throat, I hate this place. Keep moving, said. We need to find water before dark. They walked for hours. Kex stumbled often, his short legs struggling to keep up, but stayed beside him and helped him over the rough ground. Ranged ahead, his ears turning at every sound, his claws ready. By midday, they found a stream. They drank deeply and rested in a small clearing, climbed a tree and tried to see the summit stone, but the forest was too thick. She could only guess at the right direction. How far is it? Asked when came back down. I do not know. Far, we need to move faster. They started walking again. The forest grew darker as the afternoon wore on. The sounds changed. The birds went quiet. Something else was moving out there now. Stopped suddenly, his nose twitching. I smell something. Smelled it too, a hot, sour smell like old meat in anger. Her fur stood up along her back. What is it? Kex whispered. Before anyone could answer, the bushes exploded. The creature that burst out was massive, twice the size of an adult. Its body was covered in thick armored plates the color of dried blood. Its eyes were small and mean and filled with hunger. Rows of teeth lined a mouth big enough to swallow a cub whole. A razorback, one of the most dangerous predators in the... Keck screamed, leaped forward, claws out, but grabbed him and pulled him back. No, you cannot fight it. The razorback charged. The cubs scattered, running in different directions. Grabbed Kex and half-dragged him toward a cluster of thick trees. Was right behind them, circled around, trying to distract the beast. They found a gap between two fallen logs, too small for the razorback to follow. They squeezed inside, their hearts pounding, their breath coming in short gasps. The razorback prowled outside. It could not reach them, but it was not leaving either. It settled down in front of their hiding spot and watched them with patient, hungry eyes. "What do we do?" asked. Did not answer. She was trying to think, but fear kept getting in the way. Everything she had learned about survival told her to run, to fight, to do something. But running meant leaving cover, fighting meant death, and staying meant... "It will wait," said. His voice was flat. "Razorbacks can wait for days. It knows we have to come out eventually." Kex was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. "I want to go home," he whispered. "I want Mother." Pulled him close and wrapped herself around him. She looked at with desperate eyes. "There has to be something we can do." But had no answer. She had kept them alive through the winter. She had found food when there was none. She had protected them from cold and sickness and loneliness. But this was different. This was a monster she could not outrun and could not fight. The razorback yawned, showing all its teeth. It had all the time in the world. It would wait until they were weak from hunger and thirst. Then it would eat them. Night was coming. The temperature was dropping. They had no food, no water, no weapons. And somewhere far away, the summit stone waited unreachable. Pressed her forehead against the cold ground and felt something she had never felt before. Despair. She was the oldest. She was supposed to protect them, but she did not know how. She did not know what to do. And in the darkness outside, the razorback began to purr with satisfaction, knowing that its meal was only a matter of time. Watched the screens in the observation room. The elders had placed small flying cameras throughout to monitor the cubs. They called it tradition, but suspected they simply enjoyed watching the struggle. Most of the groups were doing well. They had found shelter. They were moving toward the summit stone. Some had already traveled half the distance. But one group was not moving at all. Leaned closer to the screen. The 4 orphaned cubs were trapped in a small space between fallen logs. Outside their hiding spot, the razorback waited with terrible patience. "A shame," said one of the elders, watching the same screen. "They lasted longer than I expected, but the forest has found them." "You will not send help?" asked. The elder looked at her with surprise. "Help, in the trial? That would make them failures forever. It would be kinder to let them die." Said nothing. She watched the screen. The smallest cub, Kex, was crying. His sister held him close. The eldest sat with her head down, her body still. She had given up. Something broke inside then. A wall she had built around herself, the professional distance that let her do her job without feeling too much. It crumbled, and underneath was something hot and fierce. She stood up. "Where are you going?" the elder asked. "For a walk." "It is dark. The forest is dangerous at night." Did not answer. She was already out the door. The night was cold and full of strange sounds. Moved through the trees with care, using the map she had memorized. She had always been good at finding her way in the dark. That skill had kept her alive in places far more dangerous than this forest. She found the razorback first. It was huge, even bigger than it looked on the screen. Its armored body rose and fell with slow breaths. It was half asleep, confident that its prey was not going anywhere. Circled around it, staying downwind, making no sound. The cubs had sharp noses, but she was human. She knew how to move without being noticed. She found the gap in the logs where the cubs were hiding. She crouched down and spoke softly. "Do not be afraid. I am not here to hurt you." 4 pairs of eyes snapped toward her. The eldest bared her teeth. "Go away, human. You should not be here." "I know, and I cannot help you fight. If I do, your trial will mean nothing. You will carry shame forever," kept her voice low and calm. "But I can tell you something my people learned long ago. Will you listen?" Hesitated. The others looked at her, waiting. "Speak," finally said. Settled into a more comfortable position. Outside, the razorback shifted but did not wake. "On my world long ago, my ancestors were weak. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We were slow. We were soft. Every predator on our world was stronger than us. "Then how did you survive?" asked. "We learned to work together. One human alone was prey. But many humans, working as one, could become something greater than any single predator." Snorted pretty words, but there are only 4 of us. That thing out there is a monster. Yes, it is built to fight one enemy at a time. It charges, it bites, it kills, then it moves to the next target. Paused. What happens if there is no single target? What happens if every time it turns, something attacks from behind? Was listening now, her ears forward. My ancestors hunted great beasts this way, animals 20 times their size. One would attack, then run. Another would attack from a different direction, then another. The beast would grow confused, tired, angry. It would make mistakes, and when it was weak enough, the hunters would strike together and bring it down. "We are not hunters," Kex whispered. "We are cubs." Looked at him, his pale fur was dirty and matted. His eyes were red from crying. He looked like the weakest creature in the forest. But she saw something else in him too. She saw the way his siblings gathered around him. She saw the bond between them, the love that had kept them alive through everything. "You are not alone," she said. "That is your strength. The Razorback is strong, but it is only one. You are 4 and you are one at the same time. You are a pack." His eyes widened. Something was changing in her face. The despair was fading. Something new was taking its place. "It is dangerous," said slowly. "We could die. You will die if you stay here. At least this way you choose your fate. You fight together or you die together. That is what a pack does." Stood up, she had said enough, maybe too much. But she could not watch them give up. She could not watch them die waiting. "I must go now. If anyone sees me here, it will ruin everything. But remember what I told you." She looked at each of them in turn. "You are stronger than you know, all of you." She disappeared into the darkness. For a long moment the cubs sat in silence, then spoke. "I always wanted to fight it. You held me back." "Because you would have died alone," said. "But together." She turned to look at her siblings, at who was brave in quiet ways, at Kex, who was afraid but had never once asked them to leave him behind, at whose courage had always been too big for his body. "We are a pack," she said. "The human is right. We have always been a pack. We just did not know what that meant." She began to explain the plan. Eyes grew bright with excitement, listened carefully, asking questions, thinking of ways to make it better. And Kex, small and scared, looked at his siblings and made a decision. He would not let them down. Outside, the Razorback slept on, dreaming of easy prey. It did not know that the prey had just become the hunters. Dawn came gray and cold. The Razorback woke slowly, stretching its massive body, its small eyes turning toward the gap in the logs where its prey was hiding. But the gap was empty. The beast snorted with confusion. It pushed its nose into the opening, smelling for the cubs. The scent was there, but fatting. They had moved during the night, somehow slipping past without waking it. A sound came from the left, a small stone bouncing off a tree. The Razorback turned and charged toward the sound. Nothing there. Another sound came from the right, then from behind. The beast spun in circles, its anger growing. Where were they? How were they doing this? Watched from his hiding spot in the branches above. His heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. He waited until the Razorback was facing away from him. Then he dropped. His claws raked across the beast's back, finding the gaps between the armor plates. The Razorback screamed and tried to twist around, but was already gone, running through the underbrush, disappearing into the shadows. Before the beast could follow, attacked from the other side. She was not as strong as, but she was fast and precise. Her claws found the soft skin behind the Razorback's front leg. Blood sprayed. The beast roared and lunged at her, but she rolled away and vanished. The Razorback was bleeding now. Not badly, but the pain made it angry, made it careless. It charged after, crashing through the underbrush like a storm. And then Kex appeared in front of it. The smallest cub stood in the middle of a small clearing, his pale fur bright against the dark forest. He was shaking so badly he could barely stand. Every part of him wanted to run, but he did not run. He stood there and watched the monster come. The Razorback saw easy prey. It opened its jaws and charged. At the last moment, Kex dove to the side. The beast's teeth snapped shut on empty air. It tried to turn, but its own speed worked against it. It stumbled. And struck. She came from above, dropping from a high branch with all her weight behind her. Her claws sank deep into the razorback's neck, into the one spot that was not protected by armor. She bit down and held on as the beast thrashed and screamed. And attacked again, hitting the legs, making the beast stumble more. Kex grabbed a fallen branch and shoved it between the razorback's feet. The monster fell. It tried to get up but was still on its neck, biting deeper, cutting off its air, and kept attacking, opening more wounds, wearing it down. The razorback's struggles grew weaker. Its roars became whimpers. And then it was still. For a long moment, no one moved. The cubs stood around the fallen beast, covered in blood, breathing hard. They could not believe what they had done. Was the first to speak. "We killed it." His voice was full of wonder. "We actually killed it." Sank to the ground, her legs giving out. "I thought we were going to die. I was so scared." "We were all scared," said. She stepped down from the razorback's body and looked at her siblings, at the blood on their fur, at the new light in their eyes. "But we did it anyway, together." Kex stood off to the side, staring at the dead beast. His whole body was still shaking, but there was something different about him now. He had faced the monster. He had not run. Walked over to him and touched her forehead to his. "You were the bravest of all," she said. "You stood in front of it. You made it look at you." "I was scared," Kex whispered. "Being brave does not mean not being scared. It means doing what you must even when you are terrified." Pulled back and looked at him with new respect. "You are a true hunter now, little brother." They rested for a short while, but they could not stay long. The trial was not over. The summit stone was still far away, and they had already lost a knight. They began to walk, but something was different now. They moved together as a unit, ranged ahead but he never went too far, watched the sides, watched behind, and Kex walked in the center, protected but no longer weak. He had earned his place. Other predators found them, a pack of long-toothed hunters that usually picked off lone cubs. But the cubs were not lone, and when they fought as one. The hunters retreated, confused by prey that did not act like prey. A great snake dropped from a tree, trying to catch, and Kex attacked it from both sides while pulled their sister free. They left the snake bleeding and moved on without stopping. The night passed, the next day passed. They grew hungry and tired, but they did not stop. They drank from streams. They ate bitter roots that knew were safe. They slept in shifts, always with someone watching. On the morning of the third day, they saw it. The summit stone rose above the trees like a giant fist reaching for the sky. It was covered in ancient carvings, the names of every cub who had ever passed the trial. At its base, the elders waited. Other cubs were already there. They had arrived hours earlier, looking tired but healthy. They had faced the forest and survived. But when Scroop walked out of the trees, everyone went silent. The 4 orphans were covered in dried blood. Their fur was matted and torn. Cuts and bruises marked their bodies. Behind them and dragged something heavy. The razorback's head. They dropped it at the base of the summit stone and stood before the elders, battered and exhausted but standing tall. "We have come," said, her voice was steady. "We have passed the trial." No one spoke. The other cubs stared with wide eyes. The elders looked at each other, then at the massive head lying in the dirt, then at the 4 small cubs who had somehow killed one of the most dangerous predators in the... The High Matriarch stepped forward. Her eyes were unreadable. "Tell me," she said, "tell me everything." And with her siblings at her side began to speak, told them everything. She told them about the razorback finding their group. She told them about the long night trapped between the logs, waiting to die. She told them about the human who had come in the darkness and spoken strange words about working together. And she told them about the hunt, about how 4 weak cubs had brought down a monster that should have killed them all. When she finished, silence hung over the gathering like a storm cloud. The elder who had spoken to before stepped forward. His face was twisted with anger. "The human interfered," he said. "She entered during the trial. She spoke to the cubs. She gave them help. The trial is invalid. These cubs have failed. They must carry the mark of shame forever." Other elders nodded. Whispers ran through the crowd. Some of the cubs who had passed their own trial looked relieved. They did not want to share their glory with orphans. Felt her heart sink. After everything they had done, after everything they had suffered, it would all be taken away. She looked at her siblings. Ears were flat with anger. Eyes were filling with tears. Kex was staring at the ground, his small body shrinking. "No." The word cut through the whispers like a blade. Everyone turned to look at the High Matriarch. She walked slowly toward the Razorback's head, looking down at its dead eyes, its terrible teeth. Then she looked at the 4 small cubs who had killed it. "Tell me," she said to the angry elder, "what did the human give them?" The elder blinked. "What? You say she helped them. What did she give them? Did she give them weapons?" "No, but—" "Did she give them food, shelter? Did she fight beside them?" "No." "Then what did she give them?" The elder hesitated. "She gave them words, an idea, a way of thinking." The High Matriarch nodded slowly. "An idea. She gave them knowledge." She turned to face the gathered, her voice rising. "Is knowledge not a tool? When our ancestors learned to make fire, was that not an idea? When they learned to track prey by the stars, was that not knowledge?" No one answered. These cubs used what they were given. They took an idea and made it their own. They fought together as a pack in a way that none of us have ever taught our children. She looked at the Razorback's head again. "And they killed a beast that has ended many trials before." She turned back to and her siblings. Her golden eyes were soft now, almost gentle. "You pass," she said. "You have earned your place among us." Relief washed over like warm water. She felt her siblings press against her, felt their joy mixing with her own. They had done it. They had survived. But the High Matriarch was not finished. "Where is the human?" she asked. The crowd parted, stood at the edge of the gathering, her face calm but her eyes watchful. She had been there the whole time, watching, waiting to see what would happen. The High Matriarch walked toward her. Every eye followed. "You broke our rules," the High Matriarch said. "You entered during a sacred trial. You spoke to the cubs when no one was supposed to help them." Nodded, "I did." "Why?" Was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was clear enough for everyone to hear. "Because I saw 4 children who were going to die. Not because they were weak, but because they did not know their own strength. They had everything they needed to survive. They just needed someone to show them how to use it. And you thought you knew better than our traditions, better than 10,000 years of wisdom." "No," shook her head. "I thought you had forgotten something, something that my people almost forgot too, a long time ago." "And what is that?" "That there is more than one kind of strength." Looked out at the crowd, at the proud warriors and fierce hunters. "Your people value the lone champion, the single warrior who can defeat all enemies, and that is a true strength, but it is not the only strength." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "My ancestors were weak. Alone, any predator could kill us. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. But we learned that when we stood together, we became something greater than ourselves. Many weak creatures, working as one, can become stronger than any single champion." She turned back to the High Matriarch. "You are fighting a war you cannot win alone. Your enemy is too big, too powerful, and you will not ask for help because you see asking for help as weakness." She gestured toward and her siblings. "But look at what these cubs did. They asked for help from each other. They fought together, and they won." The High Matriarch was silent for a long time. Around her, the elders shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry, others looked thoughtful. A few looked like they were seeing something for the first time. "For 10,000 years, the High Matriarch finally said, we have tested our cubs alone. We believed that solitary strength was the highest virtue, that those who could not stand alone were not worthy of standing at all." She looked at the 4 cubs, then at the human, then out at her people. "Perhaps we were wrong." A murmur ran through the crowd. The High Matriarch raised a paw for silence. "Perhaps there is another kind of strength, the kind that builds bridges instead of walls, the kind that sees asking for help not as weakness but as wisdom." Her eyes found again. "The kind that your people mastered long ago." Inclined her head. "We had to learn it the hard way. We almost destroyed ourselves before we understood. Many times we came close to the end, but we learned, and we survived." The High Matriarch smiled, a slow movement of whiskers that transformed her stern face. "Then perhaps that is the next lesson you can teach us, human, how to become one pack instead of many." She turned to the crowd and spoke with the full weight of her authority. "I declare these cubs past, more than past. They have shown us something we needed to see." She looked at. "You and your siblings will not be anymore. I claim you for my own clan. You will be my with all the rights and honors that brings." Sighs went wide, behind her gasped. His mouth fell open, and Kex, the smallest, the weakest, began to cry with joy. The High Matriarch turned to one last time. And you, human, you came here as an outsider, a guest we barely tolerated, but you have given us a gift we did not know we needed. She reached out and touched shoulder, a gesture of respect among the. You will always be welcome among our people. You are a friend of the clans. The four cubs approached. Kex, still crying, pressed his forehead against her palm in the gesture of deep bond. Thank you, said. You saved us, not by fighting for us, but by showing us how to fight for ourselves. Knelt down so she was at their level. She looked at each of them, at the warriors they had become, at the pack they had always been. You saved yourselves, she said. I just reminded you that you could. The sun broke through the clouds, warming the gathering with golden light. Around them, they began to talk among themselves. Something was changing. Something old and proud was learning to bend just a little to make room for something new. The war with the hegemony would continue. There would be more battles, more losses, more hard days ahead. But something had shifted. They were beginning to understand that strength could come from many sources, that standing together was not the same as being weak. And on a small planet at the edge of known space, 4 orphaned cubs who had become a pack stood in the light of victory, knowing that they would never be alone again. Looked up at the sky, thinking of home, thinking of all the long road that had brought her here. She had come to build a bridge between two peoples. She had not expected to learn something herself. But watching the cubs, watching them slowly open their hearts to new ideas, she understood something important. This was why humans had survived, not because they were the strongest, not because they were but because they knew how to share what they had learned, how to lift others up, how to make the whole galaxy a little stronger by standing beside those who needed help. The cubs had faced their first trial. They had passed only when the humans stood behind them. But now they could stand on their own, and someday they would stand behind someone else who needed help. That was how packs worked. That was how peoples grew strong. And that was how, slowly, one small act of kindness at a time, the galaxy became a better place for everyone.